Olivia stood in the middle of the living room, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as she forced the words out. "I'm not in love with you anymore." The room fell silent. Daniel sat frozen on the couch, his eyes locked onto hers, searching for something, an explanation, a sign that she didn't mean it, that this was just another argument they could move past. But there was nothing, no anger, no yelling, just the slow realization settling into his features. He swallowed hard. Since when? Olivia looked away, her nails digging into the fabric of her sweater. She didn't have an answer that would make sense. The truth was messy, tangled in months of quiet resentment, in the stolen moments of validation she had found elsewhere. "Olivia?" His voice was quieter now, more controlled. "How long have you felt this way?" Her heart pounded. How long? Since the first time Ethan made her feel like she was worth listening to. Since the night she stayed up late, texting someone who wasn't her husband. Since she started waiting for messages that weren't from Daniel. She forced herself to meet his gaze. A while. Daniel let out a slow breath, nodding slightly as he processed her words. He looked tired, like the weight of everything had just settled on his shoulders all at once. She expected him to get angry, to yell, to ask how they had gone from "I love you" to "I don't love you anymore." Instead, he just studied her, his expression unreadable. Then finally, he asked the question she had been dreading. "Is there someone else?" Her stomach twisted, her lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel's eyes didn't leave hers. He wasn't accusing, he was asking, giving her the chance to tell him the truth. She had two choices. She could tell him everything, that she had been talking to someone else for months, that she had confided in Ethan more than she ever had in her own husband, that she had let herself emotionally drift into something that she wasn't even sure how to define. Or she could lie. She took a shaky breath. No. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she said it anyway. Daniel studied her, his jaw tightening slightly. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. Instead, he nodded slowly, running a hand down his face. All right. That was it. No yelling, no accusations, just acceptance. The weight of it crushed her more than any argument ever could. Olivia had been feeling the distance between her and Daniel for a long time. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't something that hit her all at once. It was the small, subtle things, the way their conversations had turned into a monotonous exchange of logistical details. Work schedules, bills, their son's school projects. There was nothing real anymore. No laughter, no light-hearted moments, no connection. It was just day after day, ticking off responsibilities, but neither of them really seeing each other. She tried to bring it up, but every time she did, Daniel's response was the same. "We'll figure it out." He was distracted, always tired from work, and when he wasn't, he'd pull away, lost in his own thoughts. "Can we talk about us?" she had asked one evening after dinner. He didn't even look up. "We're fine, Liv. We'll figure it out. We always do." It was always the same. She wanted more, but he was content with the status quo. He didn't seem to notice her growing frustration, the ache that started in her chest every time they went to bed without even saying goodnight. The loneliness was quiet at first, but it began to seep into everything. It was in the silence at the dinner table, in the empty space beside her on the couch, in the cold sheets next to her at night. Daniel wasn't cruel or mean. He was just absent. That's when Ethan started to become a more prominent part of her life. At first, it was harmless, just casual conversations about work, complaints, jokes, the usual office chatter. But Ethan listened, and more importantly, he seemed to understand. He didn't offer solutions. He didn't tell her everything would be okay. He just listened. It felt good to be heard again. It wasn't until one night, after a particularly harsh argument with Daniel, that things shifted. Olivia had come to work upset, her emotions still raw from the fight. Ethan noticed right away. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice soft, careful. She didn't mean to unload on him. She hadn't planned on telling him how bad things had gotten. But in that moment, she found herself sitting down and saying the words she had been holding in for months. "I don't know what happened to us," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I don't feel like I even know him anymore." Ethan's expression softened, and he nodded, offering the kind of empathy Olivia hadn't realized she was craving. "That sounds really hard," he said simply. She nodded, biting her lip. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that, how much she needed someone to just acknowledge her pain. As the conversation went on, Olivia found herself telling him more than she had planned. She talked about how she felt invisible at home, how she missed the connection they used to have. She spoke about the way Daniel had pulled away without even realizing it, how every attempt to fix it had only pushed him further away. Ethan listened quietly, nodding every now and then, and when she finished, he said something that stuck with her. "You deserve to feel valued. You deserve someone who sees you." For a moment, Olivia felt a flicker of warmth inside her, like she had been given a lifeline. She should have stopped. She should have pulled back, realized where this conversation was heading, and walked away. But she didn't. Ethan's words felt like validation, the kind she hadn't gotten from Daniel in so long. And just like that, the emotional barrier she had built to protect herself began to crack open. She told herself it was just a friendly conversation, but deep down, she knew something had shifted. She was no longer just talking to Ethan about work. She was telling him about her life, her marriage, her pain. And the worst part was, she didn't want to stop. Olivia's phone buzzed, and her heart skipped a beat. She didn't have to look at the screen to know who it was. Ethan. "Long day?" A small smile tugged at her lips as she quickly typed back. "Olivia, you have no idea." She glanced across the living room where Daniel sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledging her. This had become their routine. No words, no connection, just silence filling the space between them. Her phone vibrated again. "Ethan, want to talk?" She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. But she did. "Olivia, yeah." The messages came easily after that. They started simple, complaining about work, venting about daily stress. But slowly the conversations shifted. Ethan asked about her favourite childhood memory, what made her happiest, if she ever wished she had chosen a different path in life. Daniel never asked things like that anymore. One night, after an exhausting day, she had texted Ethan without even thinking. "Olivia, I don't know what I'd do without you." The response came immediately. "Ethan, I'll always be here." She felt something tighten in her chest, a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just talking anymore. She had started dressing differently, fixing her hair in ways she hadn't bothered to in years. She laughed more at work, at Ethan's jokes, at the way he noticed things Daniel never did. And then, one evening, as she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blouse before work, Daniel finally noticed. "You've been on your phone a lot lately," he said, his voice casual but laced with something else. Olivia barely looked up as she swiped through her messages. Daniel set his phone down. "Who are you always texting?" Her grip on the phone tightened. She forced a light chuckle. Just work stuff. He studied her for a long moment, his jaw tightening slightly. Must be a pretty funny work meeting then. Her stomach flipped, but she kept her expression neutral. Don't start, Daniel. I'm not starting anything, he said. I'm just asking a question. She sighed, placing her phone face down on the table. It's nothing, okay? Can we not do this right now? His eyes darkened. Fine. But she knew him well enough to see it, the doubt, the suspicion, and yet she still picked up her phone the moment she was alone in the bedroom. Olivia, Daniel's acting weird tonight. Ethan's response was immediate. Ethan, he doesn't appreciate what he has. If I were your husband, I'd never take you for granted. Her breath hitched. She read the message again. She knew this had crossed a line, and yet, as her fingers moved over the keyboard, she didn't stop herself. Olivia, I wish things were different. A pause, then his reply came. Ethan, if things were different, I'd be the man you deserve. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Daniel's voice from the other room pulled her back to reality. Are you coming to bed? She swallowed hard, her grip tightening on the phone. Yeah, she called back, slipping the phone under her pillow. She lay beside her husband that night, staring at the ceiling, knowing she had already left the marriage in her heart. Olivia hadn't planned to meet Ethan outside of work. At least, that's what she kept telling herself. The text had come in while she was still at home, sitting across from Daniel in the living room, both of them absorbed in their own worlds. The TV flickered in the background, but neither of them was watching. Ethan, rough day? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could feel Daniel's presence just a few feet away, but it didn't stop her. Olivia, yeah, I just need to get out for a bit. A second later, another message appeared. Ethan, come grab a drink with me. Her stomach twisted. This was different. Talking at work was one thing. Texting late at night had already crossed a line, but this was dangerous. She glanced up at Daniel. He didn't even look at her, his face illuminated by his phone screen. The decision was made before she even realized it. She grabbed her coat. I'm heading out for a bit. Daniel barely looked up. Where? She swallowed hard, forcing her voice to sound casual. Just meeting a friend. He didn't ask who, didn't ask if she wanted company, just nodded, already distracted by something else. That should have been enough to stop her, but it wasn't. Ethan was already at the bar when she arrived, leaning against the counter with that easy smile that made her feel like she was someone again. Someone important. He looked her over, his eyes lingering just a second too long. You look beautiful. She tucked her hair behind her ear, ignoring the way her skin heated under his gaze. You always know what to say. He chuckled, signaling for the bartender. That's because I actually pay attention. A drink appeared in front of her, and she took a slow sip, letting the warmth spread through her chest. The conversation flowed effortlessly. It always did with Ethan. No tension, no awkward silences, no feeling like she was fighting to be heard. And then, somewhere between the laughter and stolen glances, he reached across the table. His fingers brushed against hers, lingering just long enough for her to know that it wasn't an accident. She didn't pull away. Her breath caught as she looked up at him. He wasn't just flirting anymore. He was waiting. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She could still stop this. She could still walk away. But deep down, she knew she wouldn't. For the first time in a long time, she felt wanted. That night she lay in bed beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling. His breathing was slow and steady, like nothing had changed. But something had changed, something she could never take back. She had already left this marriage in her heart. Now it was just a matter of time before she left completely. Olivia stood in the dimly lit living room, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might drown out the silence. Daniel sat on the couch, his elbows resting on his knees, his fingers clasped together like he was bracing himself for something he already knew was coming. She took a deep breath. There was no easy way to say it, no gentle way to destroy someone who had once been her whole world. "I'm not in love with you anymore." The words hung in the air between them, suffocating, irreversible. Daniel didn't react at first. His posture remained the same, his gaze fixed on the floor, but then slowly he lifted his head and looked at her, his brows furrowing just slightly. Not anger, not shock, just confusion. Since when? Olivia's throat tightened. She could lie, pretend this had been a slow, painful decline over years, but the truth was much simpler. Since Ethan made her feel something again, since she had started looking forward to his messages more than Daniel's presence. Since she had stopped trying because she had already found comfort somewhere else. But she couldn't say that. So instead, she swallowed hard and whispered, "I don't know." Daniel let out a slow breath, dragging a hand down his face. "Don't do that, Olivia. Don't stand there and pretend like this just happened overnight." She flinched. He wasn't wrong, but admitting the truth would only make everything worse. Daniel stared at her, his voice quieter when he spoke again. "Is there someone else?" Her body stiffened. She wasn't sure what was worse, the directness of the question or the way his voice cracked slightly as he asked it. She could feel his eyes searching hers, waiting, hoping. The truth was there, clawing at her throat, but she wasn't ready to say it. "No," she said softly. "It's just, I don't feel the same anymore." The moment the words left her mouth, she knew he didn't believe her. His expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes did. It was like a switch had flipped, like he had been holding on to some last shred of hope, and now, it was gone. "Okay," he said finally. That was it. Just okay. She had expected a fight, yelling, accusations, some kind of reaction. But Daniel just sat there nodding slowly, as if he was coming to terms with something she had only just admitted to herself. The pain in his eyes was worse than if he had screamed at her, because he knew. Maybe he didn't know the details. Maybe he didn't know Ethan's name, or the way her heart had started racing when her phone buzzed, or the way she had checked out of this marriage long before tonight. But he knew, and still, he didn't fight for her. He just exhaled, shoulders slumping, and whispered, "Then there's nothing left to say." The papers were signed. The marriage that had once been her entire world was now reduced to legal documents and a cold exchange of signatures. Olivia sat in her apartment, staring at the last text Daniel had sent her. "Daniel, I hope you find what you're looking for." There was no anger, no desperation, just a quiet final goodbye. She exhaled slowly, pushing her phone aside. It didn't matter anymore. This was what she wanted. And now she was free. Ethan was the first person she wanted to tell. For months, she had been sneaking around, keeping their connection in the shadows. But now she didn't have to. No more guilt. No more secrets. She grabbed her phone and typed quickly, "Olivia, it's done." A few minutes passed. No response. She frowned, refreshing their conversation. Usually Ethan replied instantly. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he hadn't seen it yet. She tried again. "Olivia, are you free tonight? Let's finally celebrate." An hour passed. Still nothing. Her stomach twisted, but she forced herself to stay calm. Ethan had been there for her through everything. He wasn't Daniel. He wouldn't just disappear. The next morning, she checked her messages first thing. Still nothing. Her chest tightened as she dialed his number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. She hung up and tried again, straight to voicemail. A sinking feeling settled deep in her gut. She told herself it was just bad timing. Maybe he had family visiting, maybe something came up, but then 2 days passed, then 3, and reality began to set in. Ethan wasn't replying, he wasn't calling back, he was avoiding her. A week later, she couldn't take it anymore. She showed up at his office, her hands shaking as she walked past desks, her heart pounding in her chest. But when she reached his desk, it was empty, gone. She turned to one of his co-workers, her voice barely steady. "Where's Ethan?" The woman blinked in surprise. "Oh, he left." He put in his notice a few weeks ago. His last day was supposed to be today, but he decided to leave early. Olivia's stomach dropped. "He left?" Her voice sounded small. The woman nodded. "Yeah, he said he needed a fresh start." She smiled. "Guess he's moving on to bigger things." The words hit Olivia like a slap, moving on, without her. She left the office in a daze, her mind spinning. The man who had been there through everything, the man who made her believe she deserved better, had vanished. She tried calling again, nothing. She sent another text. "Olivia. Ethan, please just talk to me, I don't understand." No reply. Hours passed, then a full day, then another. And just like that she understood. Ethan had never planned to stay. He had been there for the excitement, for the attention, for the chase. But now that she was his, now that she had sacrificed everything, he didn't want her anymore. She had destroyed her marriage for a man who didn't even have the decency to tell her goodbye. She sat on her bed, gripping her phone tightly, staring at the empty screen. No texts, no calls, no Ethan, no Daniel, just silence. And for the first time she realized she had no one to blame but herself. Olivia sat alone in her apartment, the silence pressing in on her from all sides. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room, an empty reminder of how quiet her world had become. She picked up her phone, scrolling through old messages, searching for something, anything that would make this feel less final. Daniel's texts had stopped coming days ago. "Daniel, I wish you the best, Olivia, but I deserve better." She had read it at least 100 times, hoping that somehow, if she stared at the words long enough, they would change. That he would change his mind. That he would give her a second chance. But he hadn't. He wasn't coming back. Her fingers hovered over his name, tempted to send another message. But what would she even say? "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." Number it wouldn't matter. Daniel had already made his decision. She closed her eyes, exhaling shakily as she switched to Ethan's name in her contacts. The last message she had sent sat there, unanswered. "Olivia, please just talk to me, I don't understand." She had sent it 2 days ago, and the one before that, and the one before that. Nothing, no response. She tried calling him again, straight to voicemail. Her heart pounded, a mix of anger, humiliation, and regret twisting inside her. He had told her he was different. He had told her he was there for her. He had told her she deserved better. And then, the moment she actually needed him, he was gone. She wanted to scream, to throw her phone, to somehow undo every single decision that had led her here. But it was too late. She had destroyed her marriage for a man who had never truly wanted her. And now she had nothing. Daniel had moved on. His absence was permanent. She could feel it. He wasn't just giving her space. He had let go. Ethan had never truly been hers to begin with. He had been the illusion of something better, something more exciting. And now she was left with the truth. She hadn't been looking for love. She had been looking for validation. for someone to tell her she was still wanted, and in chasing that, she had lost. Nothing, no response. She tried calling him again, straight to voicemail. Her heart pounded, a mix of anger, humiliation, and regret twisting inside her. He had told her he was different. He had told her he was there for her. He had told her she deserved better. And then, the moment she actually needed him, he was gone. She wanted to scream, to throw her phone, to somehow undo every single decision that had led her here. But it was too late. She had destroyed her marriage for a man who had never truly wanted her, and now she had nothing. Daniel had moved on. His absence was permanent. She could feel it. He wasn't just giving her space. He had let go. Ethan had never truly been hers to begin with. He had been the illusion of something better, something more exciting, and now she was left with the truth. She hadn't been looking for love. She had been looking for validation, for someone to tell her she was still wanted. And in chasing that, she had lost the only person who had ever truly been there for her. A sob built in her throat, but she swallowed it down, pressing her palms against her eyes. What had she done? For months she had convinced herself that she had outgrown her marriage, that Daniel was the one who had let things fall apart. But sitting here now, in an apartment that felt emptier than ever, she saw it clearly. She had let go first. She had been the one who pulled away, the one who stopped trying, the one who looked for something else instead of fighting for what she already had.